A weekend Republican meeting out in Vegas featured a half dozen or so potential 2024 presidential candidates who in different ways made clear they believe it is time for the GOP to move on. And that meeting also featured Donald Trump, who made clear he isn't going anywhere. He is a declared candidate for president already. His Twitter account was just reinstated if he wants to fire it up again. And he is heaping scorn on the Justice Department decision to name a new special counsel to handle its investigations of the former president.
This horrendous abuse of power is the latest in a long series of witch hunts. The corrupt and highly political Justice Department just appointed a super radical left special counsel, better referred to as a special prosecutor, to start the process all over again. This is a rigged deal, just as the 2020 election was rigged, and we can't let them get away with it.
Grab bag of greatest hits there from the former president, but it's almost like the Republicans have this, is it dual track? Is it parallel universe where you have all these faces coming out and there, some saying it straight up, some just implying it's time to move on. And then he says, nope, I'm here.
You know, I'm old enough to remember January 6, 2021, and all the Republicans said it's time to move on, we can't have this, and they all slowly came back. So the question is this current posture towards Donald Trump really going to have staying power? I get why they're saying it. You know, it does seem clear that he hasn't been successful in elections and you would want to move on, but he's shown time and time again that he keeps the base with him, and then the Republican rank and file usually come back along.
Right, and so it's the fear of Trump, right? So that's why, you know, Mike Pence says the American people will decide. Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo, they don't directly criticize Trump so much. They just say maybe voters want something new. But you do have a small cadre of people who say, not him, not again, not ever.
I am a never again Trumper. Why? Because I want to win. And we lose with Trump. It was really clear to us in 18, in 20, and now in 2022.
Trump was saying that we'd be winning so much we'd get tired of winning. I say 3 strikes and you're out. If you repeatedly lose to a really bad team, it's time for new leadership.
The reason we're losing is because Donald Trump has put himself before everybody else.
The challenge, if you're Chris Christie or Larry Hogan or even the former Speaker Paul Ryan, who comes from a different wing of the party, is that you couldn't beat Donald Trump for the nomination, probably, given that base.
Yeah, and, you know, I totally agree with you in terms of just having some skepticism right now that this was the watershed moment that sort of turned the course of the conversation on Donald Trump. I just think we need more time to see. But I do think what we have is sort of the latest data point. And you have like these dots starting to emerge and you can connect the lines, right? I mean, he lost the popular vote in 2016. He lost worse in 2020. And then he unleashed this national trauma that permanently hurt the GOP's brand. And now he's, you know, thinking about and has now announced a 2024 comeback. And I think there are all these Republicans who for years have been holding their breath, wondering when is the right time to publicly defy Trump. Are we seeing that in a permanent manner right now? I'm just not sure. But I do think there are a lot of people who are, you know, looking at what's going on and saying to themselves, well, why not me? Why shouldn't this be my moment?
And when you listen to Donald Trump, he lies a lot. He just simply does. And if you look at the January 6th committee hearings, those are his people. It's not a witch hunt. These are people who work closely with Donald Trump, which is why this is interesting today. I just don't know if it has any sway with the Republican base. Bill Barr, Trump's former attorney general, writing this morning on Substack. It's painfully clear from his track record in both the 2020 election and the 2022 midterms that Donald Trump is neither capable of forging the winning coalition or delivering the decisive and durable victory required. Trump's willingness to destroy the party if he does not get his way is not based on principle, but his own supreme narcissism. Again, Bill Barr may have his own interest involved here, but these are people who work closely with Donald Trump who are saying the harshest things about him.
Well, that's who knows what to say, because they saw it firsthand. I think there's been so many watershed moments with Donald Trump, but I think I was on Capitol Hill last week after he announced, and you know, the Senate Republicans were looking around at their minority status. And here again, Trump has pushed them in the minority. Politicians keep track of one thing: who wins, who loses. They've now lost 3 times. I do think, you know, you see people going public like Chris Christie and Governor Hogan. I think that can build into something, because as you said, there's data points now. It's like 3 times he has cost them in the elections. I think there's going to be a move to pull away from him, but whether they can do it, we just don't know.
Right. You have to convince the voters because ambition's a funny thing. If people think he's vulnerable, then more people are likely to run. If more people run, then guess what? Donald Trump gets his 27% again. And one of your colleagues wrote about this in the Times over the weekend. The glut of possible Trump rivals crisscrossing the windowless corridors of the hotel had some Republicans suffering a foreboding sense of deja vu, that a fractured Republican field in 2024 could, as it did in 2016, clear the way for Mr. Trump to win the nomination because of his durable hold on a fraction of the party base. That's the challenge. You can't get Pompeo and Pence and Nikki Haley and Larry Hogan and everybody else in a room to say, you challenge him. Ambition doesn't work that way.
And when does it just stop being a headline and a chyron whenever we see a national Republican defying Trump in this way, right? When does it become just completely normalized for somebody to get out there on stage and say, yeah, this guy is not acceptable for our party anymore?
But I also think it's just going to be tough because they're saying what in front of a friendly audience, kind of criticizing him. It's another thing to have to debate him, to have to go put up with all of his attacks, personal attacks. It's another thing to try to rival his ability to really have these huge campaign rallies that speak to the base and get people fired up. The actual mechanics of campaigning against Donald Trump, that's what we're waiting to see, who steps up and is able to do that effectively.
Right. He's as weak as he has ever been. The question is that weak enough? It depends on who runs.